Number 10. Vasile Culia. Romanian national Vasile Culia found himself in over his head with a 5-figure gambling debt, so in early 2022, he decided to rob British pensioners Frida and Kenneth Walker at their home in Derbyshire, England. Tempted to get his hands on the £30,000 stash the couple were rumored to have in their possession, he spent hours surveilling the couple and planning out the crime. Culia entered the Walkers' home through a back door and waited in a utility room. When they discovered him, he bound 88-year-old Kenneth and 86-year-old Frida and demanded to know where the money was hidden. He placed a bag over Frida's head and brutally beat her. The bag obstructed her airway, causing her to suffocate to death when she might have otherwise survived. Culia also assaulted Kenneth, who survived with serious injuries. The Walkers said they couldn't remember where the money was, and Culia fled with a small amount of cash after being startled by the sound of a vehicle outside. Police traced him to the crime through DNA on a baseball cap he left behind at the scene and arrested him 6 days after the robbery. He told officers that he learned about the Walkers' alleged stash of money after overhearing 2 men at a local shop talking about a wealthy couple living in Langwith Junction. According to the conversation, one of the men had already confronted Kenneth in public about the whereabouts of the cash. When Walker refused to say anything, the man followed him home, which is how he got the couple's address and eventually passed it on to the suspect. Culia was sentenced to 34 years in prison for Frida's murder, plus 14 years for the assault on Kenneth. He'll serve the sentences concurrently, meaning he won't see freedom again until he's in his 70s. Number 9. Fake cops. 2 brothers were about to go to sleep at the home they share with their mother in Katy, Texas one night in November of 2022 when they heard banging on the front door. Outside were 3 men dressed in tactical gear, claiming to be members of the Houston Police Department. One of the suspects immediately began shooting at a household member the moment the trio got inside. He accidentally shot his accomplice, who dropped their gun on the floor and fled. The victim picked up the gun and began shooting back at the intruders, killing one of them. At that point, the remaining 2 suspects escaped in a getaway car, including the man who was inadvertently shot by his co-conspirator. Authorities said that they believe the home was targeted, but they don't know why, and they're working to get to the bottom of the mysterious case. Investigators spent 11 hours at the crime scene where they collected dozens of bags of evidence. However, it seems as though 2 surviving suspects are still at large. Neighbors told local station KHOU that the family moved into the rental home about 6 months earlier. They reported seeing nothing overly suspicious, but said they noticed a lot of cars coming and going from the residence. Number 8. Benjamin DAHM. One day in September 2021, a young man arrived at his home in Old Lyme, Connecticut, where he lived with his parents, to find an unfamiliar car with no license plates parked in the garage. The front door was locked, so he looked through the window and saw a complete stranger making himself at home. When the intruder noticed the teen, he opened a window and yelled, "This isn't your house anymore," and then slammed it shut. This was around the time that a landscaper arrived in order to do some scheduled work on the family's property. Noticing something was wrong, he called 911 while the young man called his mother to explain what was going on. State troopers arrived shortly after and banged on the door. But the intruder didn't seem to notice them at first since he was blaring music. Even after making direct eye contact with the trooper, the suspect refused to leave. Officers held the suspect at gunpoint, and he insisted he lived at the home and that his girlfriend would be there shortly. They identified the man as 31-year-old Benjamin DAHM, who lived about 20 miles away from the home he was allegedly trying to claim as his own. Several cops made their way into the house through the basement storm door with canines and ordered DAHM out of the residence. He once again refused to comply with their orders, giving them no choice but to remove him by force. They found him hiding in an upstairs bathroom, at which point he finally surrendered. Luckily, there was no visible damage to the home, and nothing appeared to be stolen. The vehicle was towed from the garage, and DAHM was charged with burglary, criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, and interfering with an officer. His bond was set at $50,000, and he was scheduled to appear in court at the end of September, but the outcome of his case is unclear. Number 7. Ajon Payne. In a series of home invasions that left residents traumatized, a pair of thieves terrorized at least 3 homes in El Monte, California in late 2022. One victim told local station KTLA that the suspect shattered a glass door to get inside and then hit her in the head. She remained conscious and fought as hard as she could, but was zip-tied along with the other household members. The intruders demanded money from their captives, including a little boy who gave them $1 because it was all he had. As the suspects were leaving, the family told them not to bother going next door because the home was occupied by an elderly couple who had nothing of value. But the burglars ignored them and went there anyway. When the victims in the first household heard a gunshot, they feared the worst. It turned out to be a warning shot, which the suspects fired right before they beat the senior citizens nearly to death. A SWAT team arrested 24-year-old Ajon Payne and another suspect, who was under the age of 18. Police came out with a statement saying that one of the men has an extensive criminal history in Southern California, but said he isn't from the El Monte area where the burglaries occurred. Payne now faces 13 robbery charges in connection with the case. However, no other details regarding the incident have been released to the public at this time. Number 6. Hilda Jasenia Nordhook. 27-year-old Robert Miller arrived at his Wichita, Kansas home one day in April of 2018 to find a screen door ripped off its hinges, a smashed mailbox, and a window that had been shattered by a brick. Inside, he found his beloved dog beaten to death. Police initially failed to identify a suspect, but continued to investigate the case. In the meantime, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, better known as PETA, offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the identification and arrest of the person responsible. Miller was devastated by the loss of his 10-year-old American Bulldog, who we lovingly named Buffalo Boy. Nearly a year later, in early 2019, police charged 30-year-old Hilda Jasenia Nordhook in connection with the crime after identifying her through surveillance footage and a license plate reader program. In 2021, she pleaded no contest to animal cruelty, theft, and burglary. She was subsequently sentenced to 30 days in jail plus 2 years of probation. If Nordhook violates probation, she'll be required to serve 13 months in prison for burglary and another 12 months for animal cruelty. Number 5. William Lucas. A 29-year-old woman was sleeping in her Carroll County, Ohio home one night in 2022 when a repeated thumping sound woke her up. She went to see what was causing the noise and found a young man in her dining room. He asked to use the phone, so she gave him one and went to wake up her aunt, who also lives at the house. The woman noticed that the intruder seemed to be intoxicated. He kept apologizing and telling her that he was just looking for his friend. The aunt was far less accommodating toward the uninvited guest and told him to leave when she came out of her bedroom and found him making a call. She grabbed the phone out of his hand and struck him in the head several times as he left. Law enforcement passed a description of the man along to local bars and tried to call the number that the suspect was trying to reach from the family's landline, but didn't get through to anyone. Carroll County deputies identified the suspect as 23-year-old William Lucas, and the number he was trying to reach turned out to be his father's. Lucas said that he drank margaritas and beers at various bars and fell asleep for some time afterward. He couldn't remember how he got to the victim's home, but he recalled using a broom handle to break in. After leaving, he passed out in the family's yard, but a friend eventually came by and gave him a ride home. He was charged with trespassing and criminal damage as a result. Number 4. TOWEL-CLAD Intruder. Steve Baker was asleep in his home in Meadow Vista, California one night in June of 2021 when his wife woke him up and said that she heard water running upstairs. The couple then noticed broken glass near the front door, prompting Steve to grab his gun. Right as he reached the bottom of the stairs to the second floor, a man dressed only in a towel appeared, fresh from a hot shower. Steve held the suspect at gunpoint while his wife dialed 911. When police arrived, they found a ceramic bunny near the door. They discovered later that the suspect had taken it out of the couple's yard and used it to break in. The home invader was identified as 25-year-old Carola Tiago Freitas, and he was charged with burglary. Speaking with local station WECT, Steve said he was able to laugh at the bizarre encounter now that the suspect was in custody and nobody was harmed, but he pointed out how dangerous it is for someone to break into a resident's home and risk being shot. Perhaps the young man will think twice the next time he gets the urge to take a shower in a stranger's house. Number 3. Anthony Campbell. During the summer of 2022, A homeless man from New York decided to take the Staten Island Railway to Tottenville, where he broke into a home. A witness reported seeing a man he'd never seen before exiting his neighbor's house. He confronted the suspect, 36-year-old Anthony Campbell, who allegedly had the homeowner's car keys in his hand. The witness took the keys back and immediately called the police to report the crime. When questioned, Campbell reportedly said he was walking around and needed a place to stay. He told an officer that he couldn't remember whether he got into the home through the door or a window. The homeowner said he left his car keys inside and locked the door before leaving his house that day. Officers noticed splintering on the door that apparently wasn't there before the break-in, indicating that the suspect pushed his way in. Campbell was charged with burglary, petty larceny, criminal mischief, criminal possession of stolen property, and trespassing. He was remanded to the Rikers Island jail despite having no prior criminal history. The prosecution offered Campbell a 3-year prison sentence, but his attorney requested a psychological evaluation and is continuing to fight for a lesser punishment. It seems as though Campbell has been participating in the rehabilitative programs offered at Rikers, indicating that he's eager to put the incident behind him. Number 2. Jabril Yusuf. After moving into a new rental home in Des Moines, Iowa in early 2022, a couple started getting unwanted visits from the previous tenant. Jocelyn Sparks and Dalton Moser told local station KCCI that the man typically came around in the early morning hours, before sunrise, and would wiggle the door handle to try and get inside. On one occasion, Sparks saw him looking through the bathroom window while she took a shower. Things took a turn for the worse when surveillance footage captured the man picking up a brick-like object and dropping it on their electrical utility box, breaking it. During other incidents, the couple saw him chopping wood and raking leaves. Sparks and Moser eventually called the police and explained all the efforts they'd gone through to ensure their safety, and how the suspect broke their utility box and a floodlight they placed in the yard for their protection. They also explained how they tried talking to the man, but that he doesn't seem to know much English, making it difficult for them to understand why he was coming around. Records revealed that the man's name is Jabril Yusuf, and that he was evicted from the property shortly before Sparks and Moser moved in. He was charged with burglary and criminal mischief and is being held in jail as his case plays out in court. Number 1. Amber Montoya. A homeowner in Lake Seminole, Florida, woke up early in the morning hours on September 30th, 2022 to the sound of someone trying to break into their house. They discovered a woman unlocking the front door after smashing through its window with a hammer, causing an estimated $400 in damages. Prepared to do whatever they needed to in order to protect themselves and their residence, the homeowner confronted the intruder with a gun and told her to leave. Jackson County deputies responded to the residence after receiving a call about a suspicious female, possibly under the influence of drugs, walking around in the area. They identified the suspect as a 35-year-old woman from New Mexico named Amber Montoya, who apparently has a lengthy criminal history spanning 5 states. She was charged with burglary and criminal mischief as a result of the attempted break-in. Jackson County Sheriff Donald Edenfeld used the incident as an opportunity to remind the public that this type of behavior won't be tolerated. He also encouraged residents to defend themselves and their property by any means necessary. Would you rather hand over your wallet in a parking lot mugging, or deal with the trauma of encountering a home intruder who didn't steal or damage anything? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!